critical one. And I'm glad some of you have read, apparently, Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in the Age of Colorblindness. It is one of the most important books written on that subject. Another book, Michelle Alexander is a young, 40-ish, brilliant black lawyer who's spent her recent life, trying to deal with this question. There is another book called Slavery by Another Name, written by a white Southerner.
Got that?
Black one. Who's trying to help. Pardon?
Saw the documentary.
Yeah, the documentary. I had a long talk with him, and it's back to what Mandela was talking about. You have to face some of these things. You have the moral courage to do that. And this man has it, a Southern born. I happen to think that a Southern born and raised white person who's been able to, like some hook or crook, to transcend race, are going to make a significant contribution to the solution because they understand America differently from the mass of American white people. See, the people in the South are these old Anglo-Saxons. That's primarily English-speaking. They and black people grew up together in spite of slavery. They are the closest in proximity, physical proximity, than anybody in this country, are Southern blacks and whites. You just have to understand the racial codes that, I'm superior to you, and, no matter how close you get, you can't get too close or whatever. But they know one another in ways that white Northerners, who are largely made up of immigrant people, who coming to America after the smoke had cleared. That's you don't understand that. The smoke was going back to the Revolutionary War. The smoke goes back to all of these political struggles leading up to the Civil War, leading up to John Brown, the white man who tried to free slaves. They don't know anything about that, and that's not emphasized in the textbook. Although all you got to do is read the history of the Supreme Court, and you've got black people. The Dred Scott decision had something to do with Minnesota because Dred Scott lived right here for several years, got married right here. And he went back to Missouri to sue for his freedom. And the man said, the Chief Justice, that these people, like Dred Scott, we have seen them for now 2 centuries as beings of an inferior order. They are so far inferior that they have no rights that whites are bound to respect. That's the Supreme Court decision, not Bubba on the back of a pickup truck in Mississippi. This is an intellectual telling you don't respect these people. That's where it comes from, institution. This is the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice, you understand, who made that pronouncement to white people. They have no rights that you are bound to respect. And it goes on and on and on and on. You're right. This is not going to happen tomorrow. We're not going to overturn this thing tomorrow. But you have to reshape your attitude that you want a free and open America. And you will do anything possible within reason to make it happen. That's the lesson of Mandela. He's saying that. I've transcended that. You know what I mean? I've forgiven my oppressors. Now let's move on to try to be human beings. We will never be truly human. That is, to be human is to have empathy for you. No matter how different you are, have some empathy. I can identify with you as a human being. That's not here. We are taught the opposite, not to have empathy for Native Americans, not to have empathy for black people from a white racist perspective. Until white people can acknowledge that the game has never been fair, it's not fair now. Yes, you got a black president. That doesn't change anything. He's fundamentally, he's an individual. They've always been Oprah, him, the president, the billionaire, who's the guy who founded BET. That's always, this is an individual. It's about, there are 2.3 million people in prisons in the United States of America. Roughly half of them are black. You don't have that many people in jails in China. They got over 1 billion people. You don't have that many people in jails in India. But in this state, You know, something's wrong with that. As Mandela would say, that ain't right. We're not more criminal than white people. White people think we are. We're not more on welfare than you in absolute numbers. Most people who receive welfare are white people in absolute numbers. You could take somebody did this experiment of people in Appalachia, give them the SAT score, they score lower than black people. See, but that myth about black people having all the sins of the flesh, and it's taught in schools. Right now, I taught at North High for 18 years. I halfway know what I'm talking about. These nice white people, they were good people, they were liberal people, but they're miseducated. They don't know anything about culture. They call Indian and black children culturally deprived. There's no human being can be deprived of culture unless you're dead. You have to have culture to live. You know, culture's every human being is a creature of some culture. Teachers don't know that. They might be smart, you know, they might have straight A's, but they don't know anything about the depth of what it means to be a human being. I also taught at St. Cloud in the School of Education there, training teachers from Sleepy Eye, Minnesota. I'm the first black person they ever saw. And they were just gawking at me, so, you know, can you talk? You know, whatever. I mean, this is the trouble we're in. But if you change your mind, attitudinally, I'm like Mandela too. I'm an optimist. I sound like a pessimist, but I'm an optimist. We can do it. But you got to do a little suffering. You got to, you know, be a little uncomfortable. That's not much of a price to pay when compared to 344 years of slavery, of segregation. That's not a terrible price to pay when what happened to our Native American brothers and really the poorest people in America. Our Native Americans, they're redneck, you know, and next door to us, and the Pine, you know, where the fight.
Pine Ridge.
Pine Ridge, you know. Have you ever been? How many of you ever been to a Native American reservation? That's good. I'm a little bit disappointed, you know that. But I've been to 7. I thought I knew poverty.
Then outside that country.
Any other thoughts?
I have a question for going back to El-Kati. He was talking about bridging the gap in the white author, that he had a sense of what was right. My question going forward is that how can we bridge this red divide and blue divide as far as going backward as far as voting? What can we do? Who can bridge this divide? Because like we have media that is for God and what's right, and you have the progressive, and we did beat back the vote. We did vote no, but they're coming again, and they're trying to go back to the good old days of when what they thought were good old days for whites empowered, and unfortunately it's the poor whites that are doing this and hurting themselves. So my question is, what can be done now to bridge this gap between the have and have-nots, the colors and the non-colors?
That's a good question. Again, I don't want to take up much time to say that. But the underlying reality is still race. Why you have red states and blue states. It's a euphemism for something much deeper than that. Let me pose this to you, and some of you may not be old enough to remember, but we're talking about, you know, before 1964, a white Republican in the South was as scarce as a buffalo. You couldn't find them. The Democratic Party was like an all-white private club. In fact, the Texas Democrats said that this is a club. And they had something called white primaries, which only white people could participate. Now, this is the thing that bothers me about both black Americans. We don't have any memories. It's almost like you're not a human being. You just don't. This ain't no long time ago. This is not a long time ago. That's not a minute ago. Most people who were living then are living now. That's not ancient history. So nobody seems to know when that transition was made, when the president, the guy running for president, Nixon, says, I'm going to develop a Southern strategy, which meant I was going to capture the white people who are disaffected with the Democratic Party, and they're leaving in droves, the solid South. Because we had our way in the Democratic Party, even though it was a liberal party, segregation prevailed because every president had to genuflect to these white Southerners, who were the most powerful force, even around Roosevelt. It wasn't he was a liberal, it was his wife, Eleanor, had the relationship with black people. He went along with them. See, I'm arguing that the people who are liberals and who are black people who are progressives and that, I'm saying it to you, it's a challenge. You're politically lazy. We should know these lessons. We should know what red states and blue states represent. It's the same old game redesigned. The red states represent white supremacy underneath. Make no mistake about that. They're running the Republican Party now, like they ran the Democratic Party. When Fannie Lou Hamer and those came to the 64 election, you know Fannie Lou Hamer?
Yes.
She helped change the world. They challenged the Democrats. It was Humphrey and Mondale and them to open up the party. That's what the Mississippi called the Mississippi Challenge. Mississippi got 40% black people. 5,000 of them could vote. What did they do? Now this is Mandelian kind of thinking here. Mandelian. These black and white people in Mississippi, nobody wants to organize a Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, which was integrated and had a mock election to show that black people wanted to vote. And once this it's called the Mississippi Challenge the Democratic Party, the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. Go to the internet. I used to have to tell people, go to the library. Go to the internet. Go to the internet. And you'll find that this battle, which changed the course of electoral politics in America, these Mississippi black and I don't know where they found these 6 white people to collaborate with them, Mississippi's, challenged the all-white delegation. You don't represent Mississippi because the 14th Amendment says that you must represent all the people, and to the extent you don't represent all the people, you will be penalized for that. Humphrey, we love Humphrey. Mondale, we run Mondale, tried to negotiate a settlement by giving the black people some seat in that Michigan delegation. 2 seats. That's when Fannie Lou Hamer said, I didn't come all the way here for no 2 seats. We want to replace the white people, all white party, which is violating the 14th Amendment. We got whites in our party. We're truly representative of Mississippi. And I hate to say this, the liberals disappointed black people. But they did. But they got something out of the deal. What the black people got is said at the next election, we get from the committeemen who run the Democratic Party, we want the party open to more blacks, more women, more, they didn't say Hispanic, Mexican, more Indians, and in 1968, the party opened to all of us. Anybody who knows the history of these parties, it wasn't that integrated, it wasn't any women in there. That's who opened it up, some people from the Mississippi, who should be heroes in textbooks. But nobody knows Aaron Henry. Nobody, you know Fannie Lou Hamer a little bit, because I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. But y'all know a little bit, but you don't know about these people. They're heroes that the children can't learn from, models. They should be in the textbooks. They're the ones that made this more democratic society. And guess what? I'll stop on this point. In 1972, in order to keep up appearances, the Republicans had to open up a little bit. They let more white women in. They let more, so-called Hispanics in. They let more, they got a visible black person where you see him 18 times on the television. Every time you look, I've seen that man. We got some blacks here. That's why they don't have any respect for you. I don't think the people who run this country